entrepreneurship at Quinnipiac University. We used to use this business model canvas book, the startup book. I was sadly disappointed in what my students were doing. And then this book came, not this one. This is the bad one. You don't want this one. And every semester, I have one student who will raise their hand very sheepishly and say, Professor, I bought the wrong book. I got this one. I said, well, no, you're okay. It's this one that you wanted to get. So Alex has a little bit of humor around it. So the whole talk today will hopefully be interactive because that's what this is all about. This isn't about just recycle. A lot of times as authors, they recycle and they just do it move forward, add up some examples. This is completely different than the business model canvas. And really, I grew up in a family construction business. So this is like the saw, the hammer, and the screwdriver for the world of entrepreneurship. It'll be the best 1995 if you pay full retail on Amazon. But real quick about me, I grew up in, as I said, a family construction business. I started my first tech company. My first life, of 2 years, I was a CPA. Great 2 years. 2 years, 2 weeks was just enough of CPA for me. So I lost my first tech company at 23, sold it at 33. In between, I had 3 sons. My first name is Dale. My younger brothers are Dean, Don, and Dave. My mom thought it sounded like bells. My first son is Dan. My wife said we're not doing that. Christopher and Matthew. Those 3 sons came along. I knew there was something more I wanted to do in life. I wanted to make an impact on other people's lives, so I was able to do that. I take 2 years in Colorado Boulder. Since I've been at Quinnipiac, I started several other businesses, a couple nonprofits, a couple for-profits, and one of the joys of my life. I have been married 37 years. She's the most wonderful person in the universe. How she's put up with me and all my changes, I'll never understand. I have 3 incredible sons, and I am so proud of dozens of alumni companies. They still find there's something I can contribute to. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's a fun part of my life. These are the things that keep me busy. I couldn't agree more traveling. I could not agree more in the prior session about traveling, whether it's the soccer games in Munich. You lost the other day, but I'll come back to it in a second. So whether it's soccer, football, my grandfather played football at Notre Dame. He was 6'1", 145 pounds soaking wet for Duke Rocky, and he was a lineman. So that tells you way back in the day. I golf, I ski, I play hockey. These are my students at Formerson. The guy in the middle, 1, 2, 3, 4th in to the right, is now a unicorn. He's got a company. It's $2.3 billion. Just turned 30. So not bad. The guy to his immediate right, who's in competition with him, he's got a company that's his share is worth about $250 million or so. They're like brothers, they fight, they're fun. These are some pictures of my students. That's what it's all about me. I always think back to networking. I think it's important to have that relationship, to understand the context of where people are coming from. When students will ask me, why don't you mentor me anymore after graduation? I will say, I never liked you as a student. I don't like your values. I don't like the things that you like to do. You're just not the person that now that I'm free to spend the time with, who I want to spend time with, the person I want to spend the time with. I like people who are honest. I like people who are candid. I like people who, you're none of those things. You're lazy. I usually tell them that in class too, but after graduation. So you all know what the business model canvas is all about. And again, I think the hole he filled with this was taking this for younger people especially and saying, yeah, well, I understand I ought to do that, but how? How do I do that? And I think that's what this book is going to do. It's going to give you, beyond just the process questions of the business model canvas, some actual toolkit to do that. And I think that for a lot of us, that was what was missing the first go-around. And so, again, I would urge you that you're all here. Congratulations, by the way, especially some of you who are traveling. I'm looking through the finalists. I'm thinking whether it's Thailand, Vietnam, Peru. Who's any further than that? I know we have Australia. I don't know if that's further than Peru. I'm trying to think who would be the furthest flight away. I came from Connecticut. That's where my university is. So, that was 6 hours. A little very impressed that you're all here. So you obviously have been doing some amount of validation and some amount of insight. I will tell you from working with a lot of venture capitalists, Connecticut is the second state in the country. We're behind only California and New York. We're always 1, 2, 3. We're number 2 this year at venture capital raised. We have a Connecticut venture group that we work with. They will tell you, for all the students, young people in the room, it's about the jockey, not the horse. In other words, the business model you guys have come up with, and you should be very proud of the business model you've come up with, and the fact that you had the guts to make presentations and put it together. But at least in our part of the world, what they're more interested in is the fact that you showed you could ride a particular horse. That horse may not finish first in the race. There'll be other horses. And so increasingly what the venture capital community and the angel investor community in New England is telling me as a college professor, it's not about deal flow anymore. Humbly, they're not going to give a rat's butt about the ideas here today. They want to know who was here today. Who were the people that showed us the ability? And the singular biggest thing as a young person, from my estimation, I'd love to hear your opinion, can you get this insight? Can you really take what you are doing in validation, not just to confirm that this particular value proposition has resonancy with these particular customers, but why? Why do those people want to do it? Or why do they reject it? Or what else is going on? Are there other potential target markets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So I think if I were to be able to turn the clock back again, it would be 22. Which for some of us, I think we'd all raise our hands, sure, why not? One of the things that I would want to do in my life is making sure that this incredible work effort you did now should not be valued finishing first, second, or third on Saturday. What you should value it as, what's the insight I've gained, and how do I communicate that insight to people around the world? Through blogging, through Twitter, whatever social media means, whatever other channels that you can, again, go to build your network, back to the prior talk. So I would really say, as a preface to the whole thing we're going to talk about today, is that what I like about this is it gives us the tools to help you guys figure out the key outcome, which is insight, not necessarily a profitable business or social business that makes an impact. Those are awesome things to have happen, believe me. Those are awesome things to have happen, but that doesn't always happen the first time. But what you can have happen the first time is that aha moment, that insight. I figured out something about this phenomenon that no one else seems to have figured out before. So, everything you want to know but were afraid to ask about the Business Model Canvas, it's a process guide. It also will give you worksheets. And because I know he's a judge tomorrow, I did not want to hand out those. So I am going to give you the T's, but if you want them, pay your $14.95, $19.95, etc. Get the book. It gives you templates, which are sometimes really nice. I'm left-handed, so I think I'm very lucky I can see the world both ways. And so for me, sometimes my left-handed brain, I need templates. Sometimes my right-handed brain wants worksheets. So it's a really nice 1-2 punch. And the book is littered with examples. So if you're not sure exactly what this means, and I'll show you in just a second what that's like. So you've all seen this before. And again, at my age, every time I ever showed this in class, it was always, what's really on there? So what he's done is he's decomposed it. And again, you want the book, you can get these PDF files. I'm not going to give them to you. But this is basically, he's got a whole bunch of things that, electronic companion version. He's very tricky. You don't put in a serial number. They'll ask you questions when you go to register it. So you have to open up your physical copy of the book or your electronic copy of the book and go to particular pages. But if you'll do that, you can set up an account on his website. And then you have access to all of these, and you also have some access to some online tools for helping to develop your business idea. So here's some examples of the forms. So it's got a learning card, a test card. It's got a really nice idea about how you can go about and confirm customers, what's important to them, etc. They're very visual. They're in keeping with his whole theme, so these are not dense, It's kind of like, again, from your presentation, what I love is simple questions, but a lot of depth to them. Same thing here. These worksheets are fairly simple at the first glance, but they're going to provide a lot of value as you go through them. So here would be an example, so testing the circle. He says that to do that in the business model canvas. This now gives you a little bit more of a routine way to go about doing this. You can create and fill out a, quote, test card that exactly let you know what you've done. Obviously, same thing. I'm not going to repeat this is small canvas because you wouldn't be here if you didn't know all that. So here's a great way that he fills in the blanks. So he's going to say, you believe that customer segment X wants to save 20%. We're going to talk to 40 potential customers. We're going to measure how many of the interviews follow up. And if at least half of them do, it's successful. That's the kind of discipline that if you can start to do that with all of your guesses or all of your hypotheses, you're going to find you start to get the snow of the avalanche of your ideas and your enthusiasm and your momentum going a lot more. The learning card is, again, now the companion to that. What did we get out of doing it? He's got a whole thing about what experiments work, and you'll see, again, from a student's perspective or from a first-time through perspective, it's really nice. He links it to the pages. So if you think you want to do for a storyboard, he'll walk you through how to do it. Again, that's what I find valuable. I want to stop at this point, start asking you guys to ask questions or contribute. What have you found has been hard? Because I can change how I'm doing this a little bit. What do you find hard about validating? What do you find has been, if you were to say, give me a quickie consulting gig, I won't charge you my usual consulting rate. What are some of the challenges you've been facing in trying to come up with your guesses, test your guesses, and learn from those guesses? And just tell us your name and where you're from.
Jeremy, and I'm at BYU right now.
Cool.
So one of the challenges we had was just like creating the most real experience possible, right? So one of the things that we did to try to validate once we were far enough along, we printed out some just 3D prints and brought them to stores, and we were still kind of doing our market research, so we would do that with customers, and then we'd ask them how much they'd buy it for, and then try to sell it to them. But so just trying to create like the most real, because then it's like, okay, well, is there like too much psychology in that where they kind of already agreed to a price and now they're willing to buy it for that much? And we'd actually, try to get them to pull out their wallets and buy it, and then later we tell them, oh, it's just a 3D printout. But just trying to do that, trying to like, that's a challenge we have, trying to create the most real and authentic validations possible, kind of like you have that chart of what they say and what they do, try to do what they're really going to do.
Right.
But that was a challenge of just like isolating all the other, just psychology in it and getting the real thing.
So that's a great question. I did not plant him. We did not talk last night. Pete said that this would be a good way to get the workshop rolling. But he will walk you through in the book some examples of what a high fidelity prototype could be, whether you have access to a 3D printer. What kind of product is it?
It's a hardware product, so it's just basically a better walkie-talkie that we're building for kind of action sporters.
Oh, okay.
So it's really easy to just, 3D print it is hardware. So.
Yeah, 3D printing, our university has a couple of levels of 3D printing. For our entrepreneurship kids, it's a fairly low-end thing, but if that works, we have a high-end in our engineering school that they have access to as well. How many of you guys, would a 3D printer help you do your prototyping? Is that something that, for a lot of you, that's changed a lot to be able to physically see, touch, feel, interact with the product. But again, the book is nice because they walk you through it. I don't know if I have that up here. This is really good advice. So again, back to both the tangible tool, screwdriver, hammer, saw, to the conceptual process. He's basically saying, well, what did you want to really learn? So did the 3D imaging get him the learning that he wanted to have, and his team the learning they wanted to have? Maybe, I think, I go back a few years to Owlet, which has been one of the bigger success stories. They were able to do it with a great video and say, okay, we really don't have the baby monitor yet, but we can show you the benefits. One of the things I I always do in my class is features tell, T-E-L-L, benefits sell, S-E-L-L. So if you can do that to show the benefits with the video. But so his argument in the book is it's the right prototyping, whether you're going to go 3D printing, whether you're going to have some sort of just a brochure, a website, landing page, etc., is based on this. And again, the punchline will be multiple. Don't just do one. Have different ways to measure different things. Very good. Other questions, challenges you guys have had in trying to validate that we can have some discussion about, and I can show you the toolbox that might be appropriate. Yes, sir. Where are you from? Your name?
Also from BYU. My name's Andy.
Cool.
One of the challenges is dealing with the two-sided market and validating a two-sided market where the other side needs to believe that the other side exists in order to find value.
Mm-hmm. And so what kind of steps have you done to try to make that validation?
Well, we talked to both sides, and honestly for us, we ended up, well, we sort of ended up pivoting away from a two-sided market concept to a one-sided market concept initially, but the two-sided was initially a challenge.
So the validation technique you did was like a focus group interview or surveys or just
We
interview?
would meet one-on-one with
Okay.
professionals on both sides of the problem, and would just ask them about their processes, how they flowed, what their pains were, and eventually decided to pivot away from the two-sided market to the one-sided.
So I'll back up. We'll do kind of like, again, our keynote, who I thought was absolutely awesome. And he was able to do sort of the out-of-body, telling us why he was, the story he was telling us of the stagemanship that he was using. I'm not going to be that good. But if you look in the middle up there on the screen, some of us, sorry, your name was? Andy may have had a fairly easy time to figure out what those customer questions ought to be for one side of the market and customer questions for the other side of the market, maybe struggle. He's got a nice little worksheet that will help you figure out if you're looking at pains, if you're looking at gains, if you're looking at it for jobs. Jobs tends to be where the multi-sided can come in my experience. So that might be a way to help you figure out, oh, we missed this. That's why that second side didn't appear. We didn't realize for them to find value and benefit, we really need to be addressing a job, not a pain, or gain, not a job, et cetera, et cetera. So that's, again, to me, the power of this is it's not a one and done. It is iterative. If you can, again, back to our prior presentation in this room, fail fast and learn from that failure. This is you will go back to these resources over and over and over again. This is not something that it's a linear process, that once you've read the book from page 1 to 300, you're done. Other questions or concerns or challenges you're having with validation and how I might show you the text could be helpful. Other things are you guys facing as you go around validating, designing experiments. So again, back to where I stopped to get some input. He has this whole thing lined out about what kinds of experiments to do. So whether you want to do down here, whether the direct contact with customers. So do you want to do the old Wizard of Oz, which is fake? It's really not there, but you've created the illusion that it's there. And he'll walk through pros, cons, and what the better benefits might be for that. So other issues you guys are having, concerns that you have, questions you might have about the validation. I always like to ask when I do these kind of things, why did you come here? You had some good choices. What do you want to get out of this? We've got a few minutes left yet. I want to make sure that for those of you who came here for a specific thing, I can give that to you. Because again, I'm not going to violate his copyright to give you all the stuff for free. But I'm more than glad to overview it, point you to the directions where things would go. And I'd rather make it something more impactful to you by you telling us what some of the questions. So what about coming here are you hoping to get that I can talk about now? All right, I've got something to talk about. I'd rather talk about something you'd like to hear. I have a bobblehead that I use in my classes. I'm a big hockey fan. One of the things Professional Association of Athlete Development Specialists, which is a very long title for people who work with athletes around the world, helping them understand what they're doing today and what they might want to do tomorrow if they're no longer an active athlete. So I have lots of bobbleheads. And if I get a class like this where I don't get the input, I'll just go to bobblehead and ask bobblehead to do it. Yes, ma'am.
I think I was just expecting something a little different from
Okay.
the topic. I didn't realize it was based on a book. So I guess I was thinking it would more have been about how do we make sure our value propositions really do line up with the target customer segments that we've identified and the types of things that we think they want.
So that's a great question. So if you go back to this, right? So this is really, to me, the guts of what you want to be able to show initially, that you can make that value proposition canvas. The whole business model canvas is interesting if you can get beyond, but this, if you don't get beyond this, the rest of the canvas. So what we were talking about and what the book is designed to do is to explode this into the various component parts in ways that give you, again, a methodology for how to attack that. So as opposed to just, which this is nice because it tells you, here's some categories: products, gains, pains, jobs, and some questions to ask. It takes the next step and starts to give you the tools. SteveBlank.com, how many of you use SteveBlank.com as a resource? It also will give you a lot of tools. How many of you use Stanford's eCorner? The Stanford eCorner will also give you a lot of tools to do. Udemy, U-D-E-M-Y, how many of you have watched Udemy classes? Those are tools. How many of you have gone to Udacity? Those are also tools. So our world of entrepreneurship has, again, I'm old enough that when I started this in 82, 83, there weren't a lot of people that wanted to help. Now, lots and lots of people want to help you, but you can't get help if you don't know what you need the help on. And that's why I think this book helps to take you that next step, is to say, okay, you understand that that's what you want to do, to show a value proposition and a customer segment where they align. How do I do that in a way that gives me comfort, whether you call it triangulation, a fancy word, like when you say hypothesis versus yes, triangulation. You've got it from 3 different ways. So back to this. How have you got it so far?
We've done interviews, surveys, primarily those two.
Okay.
MVP testing.
So what I would do if I was your professor of ventures, I would say, good, you've got part of this quadrant filled in. Now start filling in some of the other sides. Let's just make sure we've got that cross-tabbing going on. That if we look at it from, an indirect, will we get the same validation of that customer value proposition for that segment, or do we find, aha, oops, what we really see is that when we go to this customer segment, the value prop has changed slightly. So by laying it out this way, it kind of lets you know what my to-do list ought to be for how I go. And then like at the end, oops, he's got this really nice way of saying, okay, how is this loop working? Are we making progress? Because I think sometimes when you're in this mode of validating, you can just feel like you're the hamster in the wheel, and you're not getting, the momentum that you want to keep going with. So I think that's good. So in your case in particular, I guess to answer your question, what I would do is I'd go back to this type of a format and say, do I feel comfortable that we've exhausted the different types of experiments from different perspectives, as opposed to this, if you look here, if we've done all of these, which is great, you've done multiple things, but you're still only in one quadrant. You're not really helping it answer the question, have you seen it from multiple perspectives? So that's how I would say to use this as a tool. And the other tools, the SteveBlank.com, the eCorner, etc. So yes, I propose this as a way of introducing you guys to Strategizer, and this, we could certainly talk about other resources. Again, this is where I think the power of the network. I'd love to hear how many non-US teams are here. It must be almost 50-50. right? I mean, no, in general, for the competition, just scanning. So I'd love to hear from an international perspective what tools, or if any of these techniques don't apply as well in different cultural contexts. So I'd be open for, I mean, for example, in Thailand, have you found that
Cambodia.
Cambodia. Any of these techniques don't work quite as well as they would in North America?
Well, we're finding that they do work, but it's sometimes the student perspective of being brave enough to overcome their fears of, reaching out to customers in certain ways. So obviously you have to adapt according to culture. It does come in for sure.
I'd even argue with millennials sometimes. Some of my millennials don't like eye contact. They would prefer not to have that happen. That intimidates them. So even North American millennials, kind of thing. So. Other questions, comments, concerns, dialogue that we could have? Again, I could go back and just be talking about the slides, but I'd rather have you help me guide me through, because we only have a little bit of time if we spend the day on this thing. Are there other issues that people are having validating? Are there other questions you have that you want answered by having Joseph to come here for 25 minutes or so? Anybody sitting here thinking, whoa, I really want to know this, can you talk about that?
My question is more, when you've already done validations and gone through different methods, so our target customers are not, like they're in a totally different concept from where we are. So one of the key things when we get it is what do you recommend as opposed to using this one? So how do we best showcase the fact that this was the only way we could, for example, interview them or do surveys, and how do we show that that is valuable in the market that we're going into?
So were you doing like Skype interviews? Is that what you're trying to?
Like Skype interviews, phone calls,
Surveys.
Tell everybody what your idea is. Get some feedback. Since you're so brave to talk, I might as well get some value out of it. So what's your business model?
So what we are doing is, so what we call it SMEPA, what we do is streamline the application process to private secondary schools in Africa.
Okay.
So we go to school at St. Mary's University in Halifax in Canada. So our target customers are and do different content. So one of the things we've been doing is we surveyed a lot of African parents to figure out if these things do exist. But surveys alone, they tend to give them as low value.
Right.
So how do we showcase that? We really don't have many options. So we do one-on-one interviews with the African parents in Africa or in Canada, and also showcase that is actually valid, what we do is valuable, and being able to.
Well, certainly I would argue, and anybody else jump in, one of the things is with surveys, could you show secondary data where other people have also surveyed macro trends? So last week I was at Arizona State University, puts on with the Global Silicon Valley Venture Capital Group conference every year called EdTech. It's all about education technology. And your topic was in there. There are a lot of new companies, so it's about 250 companies debuting in the EdTech space. It's about another 50 to 75 companies who are growing in the EdTech space. And then there are workshops like this to educators and technologists about where this is going, where this is leading, and all that. And certainly school selection, fit was a big topic. So one of the things you could talk about is, does the secondary research that you can find support the specific surveys? And that gives you a little bit more oomphiness to say, yes, at a macro level for our particular demographic, other researchers, other people studying phenomena have found, 1, 2, 3. We now can, our survey scratched a little bit deeper and back again to the insight is you now have insight that research doesn't have about it. And again, I would always argue, always try to get as much qualitative data on those surveys, because back to our keynote, right? The qualitative data gives us the story of the young woman who wants to do X, Y types of things and was frustrated by it. So if your survey had that kind of qualitative data where now you can storytell, that will be that evidence of authority, that evidence of you're cooked, ready to go, more than just mean was 3.7. Does that help?
Yes, a lot, thank you.
Sure. Other questions or challenges you're running into? We can point out some tools and again, help each other.
Yeah, so we've been going through hypotheses. Of course, we went through our field hypothesis, and from then on, it's just been quite a variety. And we're not sure how healthy is it just to keep on going even further each time, because then we see more options and we just jump in. So we wanna sometimes just for the sake of operating properly, just okay, maybe not go for that, but then we go to sleep and then like we so empty. Oh my god! And then tomorrow we're doing it, and then like.
How many are facing the same issue where you feel that same way, where you see so many ways you could take it? So what things have you been working on? What's your idea to tell the rest of the?
Hello, we are the team of Yo Cargo. So we are solving the problem of last mile deliveries in Mexico, which are very expensive. The guys of the small and medium-sized enterprises usually face up to 74% of the logistical cost only in last mile. It's amazing because they seem to have no option but big companies. Yet there are thousands of freelance drivers, so we're calling them, we actually call them in Mexico truckmen, from motorcycles to bigger vehicles. But they're invisible. These guys have no website, they're just floating around the streets, and we're matching them together. But when we started working on this hypothesis, we're just like inside a city, and then we see there's an opportunity to do like long distance deliveries, and then we jump into it, and then we're looking like each time is going further, but it's sometimes we learn something, and sometimes we're just like that experiment took some time, and maybe we're burning it.
Well, and again, I think that's that self-reflection time. The president of Uber was at this conference. Uber's going to get into package delivery business. One of their new revenue streams is going to be to say, we are the last mile. Our drivers who can pick us up at this in Redmond and take us back to the Marriott if we miss the shuttle, but also take our laptops and our packages and our other things. So they are looking at that as an opportunity. So I think you're in a really good space where other people are seeing that is a challenge. In terms of answering your specific question, what I would say again is, I'm overwhelmed my clicker. He's got a progress board that forces you to ask yourself tough questions. And he gives you a methodology to kind of make that assessment that am I really just banging on the door that will never be open, which I should move on, or whether I do need more data. So I think that would be an example of a tool that might help you with your dilemma about do we keep going where we're going, do we add on or not. And I think, again, that ability to have that self-reflection, that mindfulness, the sense of purpose we talked about in the earlier session. When I first started teaching entrepreneurship, I thought it was a strategy thing, and I thought it was a smarts thing. So I thought it was all about finding the smartest students who came up with a killer strategy, and they were the ones I should spend a lot of time with. I now realize emotional intelligence, empathy, concur?
Definitely, it's not the smart ones that are, it's the ones that are successful in launch are often a little bit further down than the academic side.
Exactly, and so I think that those are the things that, especially our youth partner on this, are you part of this team? Yeah, that's where I think, again, back to, I think, one of your last slides was about the power of the team versus the power of the individual. I think that's a very good debate to have dialogue to have with each other. Go through the progress board individually, and then bring it together and see if you both agree that we're making the progress that we want to make. One of my other things when I first started teaching was I was, in our state, Connecticut, we have every semester, in the fall and spring, a business planning competition that we award money from the state of Connecticut. And we also have a whole state system to support innovation and entrepreneurship. And one of their objectives was to have our students start businesses and employ people in the state of Connecticut. Pretty logical thing to do a state that you'd like to do. My challenge with that, though, with these competitions, or even like the one here, is that this is a learning thing for you guys. You've learned a lot about package delivery and shipping and all that type of stuff. Whether you actually launch this business or not, that's a whole different issue. That comes back to lifestyle, that comes back to personal passions, that comes back to other stuff. So I think all that we do at this competition and in our entrepreneurship classes is help you to see is it the right choice to make. But I never like making the outcome. Again, I work with athletes, and I was at my sons were small, I coached them in hockey, and I was at a workshop with a guy who's won multiple championships, he's in the Hall of Fame. He asked all the parents to stand. The reason he sent the kid to the workshop was to be a professional player. There were 2 of us who didn't stand. He said, everybody else sit down and applaud those other 2 people. Because the passion and talent should not be defined from the outcome. And I think if you guys have this passion and talent for entrepreneurship thinking, entrepreneurial thinking, innovative thinking, it could be applied within a company, it could be applied within an organization. There are lots of ways to capitalize on that. And I think sometimes, and agree, disagree with me, the pendulum has swung too far, so it has to be E.
I agree, yeah. The mindset is very key. And one of the things I find, and I'm sure you find, is with competitions and sponsors, and they want immediate results, like what percentage launch. Right?
Exactly.
What I find is the most successful people fail with their first idea. So like our coffeepreneur, he was in our competition 10 years ago, alternative energy. I can still go back and pull out his presentation. But yet he made it a tremendous success on coffee, right? So I often find that it's the mindset and the process that is important. And it might not happen this year, it might be a couple of years delayed, but you'll see some results.
My unicorn alum, his first business plan competition he entered was he wanted to create a way for guys to press their slacks before they went to the nightclub. And he said, I can't iron. So I came up with an elevator-like thing that would keep your pants on the hanger, had a little hook, put your pants in the hanger, put the quote ironing board on your side. You were done, you go call. So at the competition, and he's a great showman, he's an incredible speaker. His name's Mike Milano. He did his presentation, and all the slides, everything was awesome. And one of the judges raises his hand and says, have you ever thought about this product through the home shopping network? Mike goes, frig that, why would I do that? I can do that. He happened to be the founder of the home shopping network and was basically saying, I would love to carry your product. So his analysis from these competitions, and I'll give you one of my, that I've had my students work out right now, is if they know who their judges are, research their judges. So I would certainly tell you, if you don't know who your judges are, you know who they are. But tonight, make sure you know what they're all about, what their passions are, what their experience. So if the president of Home Shopping Network asks you tomorrow morning that question, you say, yes, I've been thinking about that really well as a potential channel for our product. That's, I think, again, the value of these things is to get that kind of experience, to understand Q&A, to understand presenting in a different environment. And again, back to the book and the toolkit. I think at one time, probably 5-6 years into teaching, everybody accused me of just being, entrepreneurship is all about wild-haired people who are just enthusiastic and all this. And I said, no. And what got me to be able to change our curriculum into all experience-based curriculum was quite to the contrary. We are evidence-based entrepreneurship now. And my colleagues in the other schools said, evidence-based? What do you mean? I said, we have hypotheses that we frame. We test those hypotheses with data. We analyze that data, and we move on to another experiment. Bada bing, bada boom, no more having to lecture for 50 minutes. I was able to be free to say I could now have my students earn college credit through experiences, based that those experiences have some grounding in an established methodology, which is again what I will go back to this text, the Lean Startup text, the speaklight.com resources, etc. It means you should not invent things. The hard work you guys are putting into this should not be redoubled by you trying to figure out things that these types of tools and resources can help guide you to. So now you spend your time and your incredible passions and intelligences doing the other stuff. Okay. Other questions, comments? We've got about 5 minutes, 10 minutes left.
My question is, what do you do when you have the same customer segment telling you different things? So you have 50% of the customer segment saying they want something that is concealable, and you have another 50% saying they don't mind, but they both want the same solution. So they want solution A, 50% want A1, and the other 50% want A2. So how do you deliver a value proposition for the same customer segment?
Well, I would say you probably have then two different value props, right? So it's not the same value prop for the two segments, is what you're telling me.
It's the same value prop. It's the same value prop.
Tell us what it is, so we can all.
Okay, let's say you're trying to give a better life for people living with sickle cell disease.
Okay.
So you're trying to track the oxygen levels in the blood cells. So you're going to develop a wearable technology to this effect.
Okay.
So someone's saying they want it to be concealable, or someone's saying they don't mind, they rather have it on their wrist, or it doesn't bother them, they don't want it to be concealable. So how do you deliver these value props in building your prototype?
So he has the challenge of some people don't mind it being a wearable, others want it to be a Fitbit-ish. Can we use that as the metaphor for people who?
And some want it to be like something they can wear beneath their clothing and just cover it up. They don't want it to be shown.
So does he have two products, one product, or were you going to answer? Okay. What is how would you guys react to that?
I would say it's one, because if people don't mind it being seen, you can give them a considerable one because they don't care anyway.
Now that's a really interesting assumption. Is part of the reason not to be seen. Maybe there's a subtlety issue that the people who like the wearables don't want to be outed as such that they've got a device on. You're smart. That was good. And that's what, to me, the power of the mini is. That's why I really don't like, our old model of lecturing, and even worse than that, was business plan where I had to be the judge, jury, and executioner. I'm not that bright. I don't know everything. I'd rather have the crowd source. And again, to me, this is the difference from back in the day when it was everything we were. How many NDAs did you guys sign today? Right? So we share information because we all want each other to succeed. Right? This is a very small fraternity, sorority, brotherhood, sisterhood of people who launched businesses. Everyone wants each other to succeed. There's that power. I think one of the great things they do with this competition is, I'm looking for my prop of the book. I think I left it back there on the chair. They tell us what's happened to past people. There's a narrative, there's a story that we can join. I tell my students, when our alumni come in to speak, they used to be in these chairs. You're standing on their shoulders, and you're going to be the next person. Each year, our cycle time gets smaller and smaller because we learn from the mistakes, we learn from the strategies of the people who've come before us. So I think that's a really interesting insight that might help you, is to say, validate now why you think some of those people want the wearable. Is it convenience? Is it modesty? Is there other factors? And that goes back to, again, why I think they stress so many the interviews. To see it in their eyes and be able to see them say, this is really, something.
I think it's part of stigmatization. So those in developing countries were saying they're already feeling stigmatized because of this disease, so they prefer to be concealed. But as people in other countries, they don't mind. They'd rather have it on their wrist, like it's kind of cool if you can do that. So the same customer segment, same different things, and based on culture.
So that could be a defining element, is the cultural context of which your product is. Can you do it both ways from your technology point of view?
It's possible to report.
Okay.
No,
Which is easier?
The easier one would be concealable.
Then if you've got a customer segment for the easy one, start with that, and then potentially you can iterate version 2 to be the other way. I mean, divide up and conquer would be a good way. Okay. Well, I think we're about out of time, so I appreciate your attention. Again, it's a very inexpensive book. You can get an ebook version of it. I would encourage you to do so, even though you're already at a fairly high level at this. You'll find the tools and the processes valuable. And again, I thank you for taking up some of your valuable time this morning. Thanks.